All right, Jennie
Okay.
Way, thank you for coming in.
Yes, of course.
Was able to talk with your son Garrett the other day
Yeah.
and got his experience of, what it was like going from a public school to a self-directed school at the time, Wildflower.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I wanted to get perspective from his mother and
Okay.
see what that was like for you.
Sure.
So curious, what were some of the things early on where you were noticing, okay, he's wanting to make this shift or change
Mm.
out of public school into a different self-directed learning environment?
Yeah. So Garrett had always done well in school. He wasn't a kiddo who had struggled in the public school system until high school. And when he started to struggle, it looked like apathy. All of a sudden he just didn't have the motivation that he'd had before. Um, And then because it was Garrett, the way that his mind works, he dove into research. So he started researching the history of school systems and just felt like, I think his exact words were, they're wasting my time, which I hesitate to say that because I don't want to be offensive. I feel like the public school is right for a lot of kids, but for Garrett, at a certain point, freshman, sophomore year, he started to really feel like he knew what he wanted to do with his life, the path that he wanted to go down. And he was wanting to specialize and he was wanting to focus on that. And he felt like the curriculum wasn't allowing for that. And he was spending a lot of time doing things that didn't really matter to him. And he wanted school to matter. And so then it started affecting his mental health and just his happiness in general. So then I really started paying attention.
And did he um, did you guys find, well, through the research, I think he found Wildflower on his own. Or maybe did he introduce it to you? Or maybe you together
No,
were like,
I
oh,
brought
let's
it
look
to
at this.
him.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I knew Mary, so I had heard of,
Oh, yeah,
yeah, so I'd
sure.
heard of the
Mm-hmm.
school. And I thank goodness you had the website that you did that had I think there was an hour-long video on there where it goes into, what's that man's name, Peter something?
Peter Gray.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was what convinced Garrett. We sat down
Okay.
together and we watched it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
at the end, he was taking notes. And at the end, he said, that's what I want to do. That's where I want to go. This is what I've been telling you. This is why it doesn't work for me. So something in Peter Gray's work resonated with what Garrett was already feeling about school and about the purpose that he wanted school to serve in his life at that point in his life.
Yeah. So as you transitioned into a self-directed learning space, um, same with going back to what you observed, did you see an immediate shift and then some boredom set, or like what was that like? I don't want to set this up
Yeah.
for you. Yeah, what did you see?
Um, his whole body carried relief almost immediately. Like he called me the day that we were interviewing with you at Wildflower and said he was cleaning out his locker, that he was never going to go back in that building. And I said, well, maybe maybe we should see how the interview goes. Nope, no matter what happens, I'm done. And so the interview went well. He started going to Wildflower and his whole demeanor just lightened. And I'm really, honestly, a pretty hands-off mom when it comes to micromanaging my kids' schooling. I've always told them once they get to junior high age, look, this is your responsibility. I'll assume that if there's a problem, either you or the teacher will let me know, but I'm not going to look at your grades. I'm not going to, I'll ask you how your day was, but this is your thing. It doesn't necessarily need to be my business. And so I took the same tactic when he transitioned to Wildflower. But actually, I heard more about school when he went to Wildflower than I'd heard before, because he would come home and he had been able to dive into, his thing is plant science, soil sciences. And so he dove into chemistry, and I can't remember exactly what he tackled first, but he would dive into YouTube videos or research a chemical process when it came to soil. And then he would come home and say, Mom, look at what I got to explore today. And so I would learn about, nitrogen content in soil or whatever that night, which was very different from what had been happening before.
You make me think of something. How did the relationship between you and him change? It sounds like you had more conversations going on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How was that with your relationship?
You know, Garrett and I have always been close. So we've always talked. But what was exciting for me is before this, he was coming to me with frustration and I want to say heartache, but that feels like maybe too harsh of a word. But he was coming to me with problems and needing help listening. You know, he wanted me to listen, which I'm always willing to do. After the transition, he was coming to me to share things he was excited about. And so I think it brought relief for both of us. Absolutely. And I will say, it was a beautiful way. He was 15, 16, right around that cusp at the time. That's the time that kiddos are supposed to really start to individuate and trust themselves and trust their own intuition. And it was a beautiful way for me to sort of hand the baton to him and say, okay, this is what you want to do. Let's go for it. And then as the pieces were lining up, that it was really what he wanted and it was working. It was beautiful to watch him take that in and really start to trust himself in a different way.
Yeah, we had a conversation the other day, and after we had cut the recording, as he was walking out, he's like, that's one thing maybe I could have shared was he felt like from that 15, was that?
Yeah.
Until graduation, he was able to make authentic choices.
Yes.
And so when he transitioned out of self-directed learning, and of course, he was able to personalize his experience. So I think, did he get his associates like maybe the December after he graduated, or a full year? I can't remember.
No, so he graduated from high school in December and got his associates in May, just 5 months later.
That's right. But he said, I was used to making choices by that point. That, he said, like, my parents gave me the space. And, so the responsibility was mine. But I also had that internal locus of control. These are my words now.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I'm
Yeah, absolutely.
But he felt like, his words were exactly like, I didn't panic like a lot of my peers I noticed panicked. Because they just hadn't had that. It's a skill, right? Making choices is a skill. So,
absolutely.
Just to touch with what you were sharing there.
Yeah.
Trepidation at all through the process once he was in? Like, were there any moments of like, oh my gosh, what did we do?
Not for me.
Okay.
But I have had a very non-traditional path in life myself. So that it didn't bring that up in me. I know his dad had a little bit of that. His dad's a little bit more traditional, and there was worry that, what are we going to do if this doesn't work? But I felt confident that we would always have options, that if it didn't work, we still had options for other schools here in Sheridan, or even returning to the high school. It wasn't that there were any bridges burned there. He just decided to do something different. So, yeah.
Okay, so seeing Dad maybe go through those struggles and whatnot, what advice would you give to parents who, maybe they're, in your experience, a child in public school wanting to go to a self-directed place? What advice would you give to parents?
I think it's so important to listen to our kids when they're telling us they want something and need something. I think it's important to do the research and know the institution that we're sending our children to. But I think it's really important to listen to our kids, because it was always in my mind a matter of, I could shut this down in Garrett and force him to stay at the high school. But what would that do to our relationship? How would that put a wedge between the two of us if I did that and he stayed this unhappy and was suffering every day when he went to school, versus if I listen to my child and let him make this decision and let him feel my support, and then it doesn't work, then he's learned a lesson about, well, sometimes plan A doesn't work. And so then how do you reroute to plan B, knowing the whole time that he had my support? And so I think it's important to teach our kids that they can listen to themselves, that they can trust us, and that it's okay to not know how something is going to turn out. Because honestly, we never know how things are going to turn out. So we can always redirect. We can always, so I would say if you're having doubts, but you can afford to give it a try, if you feel, like your child really needs this, give it a try. And then after a year, if it's not working, then you can try something else. And your child is learning along the way to be resilient and to listen to themselves. And no matter what, that you're going to listen to them. And I think that is like the biggest piece, especially as kids get older, for sure.
All right. Well, Jenny, thank you very much. I think that's a perfect spot
Okay.
to stop this out. All right.